is that that's a video that doesn't really come from me, because a massive amount of people that are watching that video are watching it because they've never heard of this game and they're interested in it.
Right.
And they're not really watching the video because they're like, oh, here's this great video by this guy. Like
Right.
that might become the conclusion that they make at the end, but they're watching because they want to know about the game. Right?
Yeah.
And so the video blew up, but I can't really take credit for that because yes, I made the video, but it's also being driven by the topic, right? And so I think that that's a thing that I struggle with sometimes, where it's like I want to make sure. Now I don't want to like never make videos about new games. Like I loved that opportunity to work with those guys and to talk with them, and it was just such it has been and continues to be like such a cool experience.
Yeah.
But I don't want my channel to be this thing where people are like, oh, you're my like news guy.
Right. Welcome to Tarkov, a podcast for content creators who come on, share their stories, experiences, and their advice. And today, super excited, I have Riloe. Welcome.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, so glad you're able to hop on here and share your journey.
Of course.
So the way we start things off, we do 3 random questions. So are you ready?
Yep.
All right. So you're walking by the living room, TV's on. What show is on or what movie is on that's going to stop you in your tracks and you just got to sit and watch it?
The one that I would always say, funnily enough, would be John Carpenter's The Thing, because that is a movie that I have seen probably, oh my Lord, at this point, well, at minimum like 5 times. But it's one of these movies that every time that I think about watching it, or I watch like a scene from it on YouTube or something like that, I will then go down a rabbit hole of the entire, oh, and I remember this scene and I'll watch this scene again. And it's definitely the kind of movie that if anybody ever suggests, hey, you want to watch this movie? The answer will be yes for me.
Okay.
Funnily enough, my TV would never be on. I don't really watch TV, but if I were to have cable TV on, and if it was that one,
all right,
it would be hard to pull myself away from.
Excellent. All right. And now, when you were a kid, what was your favorite action movie?
Okay, this is another funny one. All right. I'm a weird guy where, especially when I was younger, I would watch the same movies over and over. But it doesn't actually mean that this is like one of my favorite movies. I used to have Iron Man, the first Iron Man, on my iPod.
Yeah.
Like an iPod Nano. And that was the one movie that I owned on iTunes. And so I've seen that movie probably like at least 100 times all the way through.
It's not a bad, it's a fantastic movie. So nothing wrong with that one.
I wouldn't actually say that it's one of my favorite movies, but it's definitely a movie that for some reason I have this affinity to, and I've just watched over and over and over. You just said action movies. That's what I immediately went to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final one here. So you get to pick anybody in the course of history to sit down and have a cup of tea with or a drink. Who are you sitting down? Who are you picking out?
Anybody from history?
Yeah.
This is a hard-hitting question. There's so many different ways that one could answer this. I could give you like a really serious answer where it's like, oh, this is something that I could gain a lot from. Or I could be like, who is just somebody interesting that would be hilarious to have sat down with.
Yeah, you could go like cerebral and say Plato. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, where my mind immediately goes is like, who could I find an answer to like one of the world's great mysteries, and it could be like, hey, tell me the truth about this thing.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anybody like that on the top of my head. What I that is sort of along those lines, and this is just because it's what's on my mind right now. I was recently going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I was watching all of David Blaine's original Street Magic little videos from the 2000s, and I think it would be very funny to talk to David Blaine about his whole thing. I find him very funny for a lot of reasons.
All right.
That's a kind of a dumb answer, but it's just what I'm thinking.
Hey,
Because it's not a historical figure. He's not like dead. He's still around. So theoretically I could go sit down and talk to him right now.
Yep.
But he's a historical figure for my
you.
life because
Yeah.
I grew up watching his videos.
Absolutely.
So that's not the greatest answer, but that's just what I thought of.
Hey, this is your pod. Your answers are all the right answers, so it's all good.
All right.
All right. So background, where does your name come from?
My name is like the most boring name in the world. It's just very close to my actual name.
Okay.
And I think like probably many people, I sat down and I had to like name a YouTube channel. And I was like, okay, I don't really know. Like do I come up with something like cool that's very, a good business name?
Yeah.
Or a very like brand like name. Basically, this was just my Discord name. Because it was just something I thought of in the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
And I just wanted my Discord name to be something real short that wasn't like something with a bunch of numbers or some dumb phrase. I was just like, okay. And it's basically just very, very close to my name. Some people have called me that, like just offhand. So that's basically it. And then at the end of the day, when I was making my YouTube channel and my other channels and stuff like that, it was just like, this is close enough to like a name or like a brand name. I was just like, I guess I'll just keep it as that. I've had other ideas in the past for like a real name for like a channel, but I could have come up with anything that wasn't dumb.
Hey, it's unique, and it's not like, oh, this is my gamer tag, Riloes 7322 or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
No, it never was. No, my gamer tags and like when I was on Xbox and stuff back in the day were terrible. I was close to actually keeping that like, and not even terrible because it's like embarrassing. They're just like dumb. Yeah. They don't even make sense. So it's just like. Yeah, it's the only name that I could think of that was like this doesn't like make people think of something else. It's just a name. Right. It sounds like a name,
All right. And now the logo sort of an incorporation of, sort of the R and the L and whatnot?
Funnily enough, it's actually just also was my Discord profile picture. And what it is that my original Discord profile picture was this, Apex Legends?
Mm-hmm.
The little Nessie toy that's kind of like a running joke in that game. There's the little Nessie plush, and I used to be really into that game. And my girlfriend basically, I don't know what do you say, made the plush right by hand before they actually sold them. They didn't even sell them at that time.
Nice.
And so it was just a picture of that thing sitting inside my computer. Like I put it in my computer, like next to the GPU. Yep. And so that was my original Discord profile picture for years, was just that picture. And so then when I was sort of starting to think about doing content creation in the future, like a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let me just do like a little sketch that's like more logo looking rather than just a picture. And that's what that became as. And this is literally the first one that I did.
Yeah.
And it's just stayed as that. I've never changed it. Like
nice.
It's if you look at it closely, you can tell that it's an extremely imperfect, just like paint tool lines in Photoshop with like my mouse. That's just what that. Yeah.
Oh shoot. And now, before you discovered YouTube, sort of what's your background? I'm assuming you have some artistic or editing, history there.
So, I mean, it depends on how far back you really want to go.
It's your pod. It's your rules, man.
In the immediate past, I have a little bit of amateur editing experience, but not really anything. Basically, any editing experience that I did have has not been applied to what I've been doing recently.
Yeah.
So I've done a little bit of amateur, like, assistant video editing. And what that means is, like, I literally get files and a script from people, and I'm assembling, live action productions. I'm assembling the video in order, right? Or I'm sorting files.
They call it like an
EDL
kind of or something like that?
I'm not even sure, but...
okay.
Yeah, no, I've always just been doing what I've been told is called an assembly, which is where you literally get the clip, you find the clips from the raw footage, and you put them in order how then the editor will then take them and actually do the edit, right? So like I did a bunch of that, and I did literally just like file management type of stuff, like literally getting a bunch, naming files and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like technically, yes, I have editing experience, but like not really, right? Professionally, like what I've done professionally, it has not helped me, because honestly in my own editing workflow, nothing that I really learned there, besides the one thing that I have actually learned was keybinds, and that's the only thing that I actually brought forward.
Oh wow.
So yeah, before that, go ahead.
I was gonna say your your videos now look like you come from a background of editing. They're just so well put together and edited.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you think so. I mean, I think that so. Yeah, I mean, like my editing skills, what call you, you're like, what have you? I don't know what you would say. Like my style or how I
Yeah.
edit has just been completely self-taught, and is still so much of a like work in progress for me. Like I still feel incredibly, you know, uh I mean, I get some pushback from like professional editors. I say this, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Like, your videos are so good." But I think that like because everything that I've done is self taught, I actually probably have some really bad habits, and I do a lot of things that aren't really like how they're meant to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know if that's hurting me. If anything, it's probably wasting my time.
Right.
But I've learned a lot of you know techniques just from like I want something to look a certain way, and I have to figure out how to
Yep.
get there, and I don't know how, right? Like I have no raw skills. I just need to like look it up online, basically.
Right. Yeah. You
Um,
don't know the workflow, like the professional workflow, how it's done, but you figured
no,
out,
yeah,
okay,
I've
let me
never been
take this
taught
to
that.
this. And yeah, nice.
Yeah, which is good for me in my own way because I guess I can do things how I want, but it's also can I mean I sometimes think of it as a bit of a weakness because then if I look at other people, like if I want to look up how to do something and then their workflow is so different than mine, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, maybe but I think that I'm so new to the whole thing that I still have a lot of time to really figure it out.
Yeah.
But to go back a second, like before that, I mean, I was very much in the art world for my whole life. I was drawing and stuff my whole life, and I went to school for fine art. I went doing a lot of painting,
Yeah.
mostly oil painting. Uh, and really no video anything experience in school. I messed around with it a bit. I did
Mm-hmm.
edit a few things. I made some videos and stuff like that, but it was really just like on Final Cut, like just to mess around. Like I never did anything taking it super seriously.
Yeah.
I was mostly just into painting and drawing.
Ah.
And I still hope that that's something that I continue to pursue. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely not something that I've left behind, and I want to be able to do it more in the future for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely some artistic, your artistic presence in the videos you've put together, and it's really cool. Now, what subject was there a particular subject you prefer to paint, or you sort of like whatever you feel like?
Well, I like painting people. I like doing portraiture. I don't paint anymore.
Yeah.
Physical media. Mostly just because I don't have the space to do it, and I don't really have the time to do it. But also just because I mean, to be sort of honest with myself, I actually really like the finished product of an oil painting, but I don't honestly really enjoy the process of
Yeah.
doing it. Like it's it's sort of frustrating. I think is the best way I would put it. Like you know what you want the thing to look like, and
Mm-hmm.
it just isn't that until you're literally finished, and every moment before that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's for me, I find it very frustrating. And I like drawing more, like just kind of a very illustrative style, and you can see, I think I've posted some of that stuff in the past, but um I think in the future I would like to do more drawing, really
Yeah.
just like pen and pencil stuff is like really what I've always loved the most.
Oh, very cool. And now are we going to see any like maybe some merch coming out of some drawings that you incorporated into things?
Oh, I would love to do that. I mean, that's always been like, long before I did content creation, I would have loved to have met. I'm very into like clothing and fashion
Yeah.
and stuff, and like I don't really have the mind to like design clothes.
Yeah.
But I like graphic design sort of, and
Yeah.
I would love to do that. I mean, it's absolutely a goal of mine. I don't really have any plans for it concretely, but
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I had another creator on Paigosity who's on sort of on the gun side of things, and she's full on artist, and like she's branded off into a whole bunch of different types of things she's made and sold and selling her prints and artwork and whatnot. And yeah, she was talking about how there's certain paintings or art that she's done that's sort of more private to her, that have meaning to her, that she doesn't want to share. And as an
Hmm.
artist, do you have that sort of same thing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that that's like all of the artwork that I share on social media these days that is as my as Riloe, right?
Yeah.
Like is all very straightforward, kind of illustrative, just almost just like character design kind of stuff, just because it's the most casual thing that I just like doing.
Yeah.
And I would never really share any of my like stuff that I did in school, like any of my more like fine arts. I
Yeah.
was very into like I was in like the fine art world. Like I was doing some like, some heavy like concept kind of just like stuff that I wouldn't ever really share.
Yeah.
And if I ever kind of dive back into that scene, I think that's the kind of thing that will pretty much stay in my IRL life, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't ever really want to have a social media presence
Yeah.
in a fine art type of way. I think they're kind of two different worlds in a
Yeah.
way.
Gotcha. All right, so we got off on a sidetrack there. So let's bring
Yeah,
it
no,
back
it's
to video.
I was just gonna sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say that last time I did another podcast with a Castle Comms, I
Yeah.
think his name is that guy, and it was totally the same thing. We brought up art, and then it became a 15-minute discussion. So I apologize. It's hard for
No
me to not.
apologies needed, man. No. So, let's jump over to video games. So where did gaming start for you?
Well, so funnily enough, I didn't actually really get into playing games a lot until I was in college. Um, and that was just sort of for a number of reasons, but I was always into games ever since I was very young, and I never played them really. Um, when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to play video games. Didn't have any video games like in my house, and so like it wasn't until I was probably 13 or 14 that I got an Xbox 360. I played a lot of Halo Reach.
Yeah.
I played a lot of I mean in those days, what was it? I mean, honestly, it was pretty much just like Halo Reach. So I just played that game. And before that though, I was always just very into like I was into YouTube gaming, kind
Yeah.
of like that whole world kind of basically since it existed, like 2009, like I was really into just like kind of the early people that were
Yeah.
on YouTube doing game stuff.
Okay.
And so that's a lot of where it came from for me, was that I was always much more of a person who watches games than who actually plays them.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite game series to this day, I've barely played through like once, like
Yeah.
Dead Space is one of my favorite series of all time. And I've watched through many different playthroughs of that game, and I've looked at the art so much, and I've read so much up on the lore, but I've only played through the games once, right?
Okay.
So I think that that's kind of an interesting, weird thing about me, is that a lot of my gaming kind of like memories and stuff are not actually from myself. They're sort of vicariously through other people, or also through my friends. All my friends, when I was going through school and stuff, were big into video games, and we
Yeah.
would talk about them and stuff, but it's like they actually had like a PC or Steam or
Right.
whatever, and would play games. And I would go to their house and I would watch them play games and stuff, but I was never actually the
That's
one
not a
doing it
bad way to do it.
until later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Yeah. So then I mean, starting in college, I kind of just still played casually. Like I played a lot of. I mean, it's funny. Like I played just so much like mainstream kind of games, right?
Yeah.
Like I just played so much. Just me and my roommate in college, we just absolutely no lifed Black Ops, just the first Black Ops, and that was an old game at that time. Like that
Yeah.
was like at that point it was like a 7-year-old game, but we would just we just play that. We would split screen play online. We would just play it all day.
Nice.
And so that was kind of like where I started getting back into like playing a lot of games. And then I got a PC many years later.
Yeah.
Played a lot of Hunt Showdown, got into Tarkov, and I mean, that's the thing, is that like as a PC gamer, I've really not been doing it for very long. Pretty much only played like 2 games seriously, Hunt and Tarkov. That's it.
And then, what made you jump into, content creation from a video game and that sort of standpoint?
Well, kind of like I was just saying, it was always something that I was interested in since I was much, much, much younger. And I never really had the resources to try, or really had much of an idea about what I would do if I were to actually do content creation.
Yeah.
So it was happenstance in many ways, but it was also something that I think that there just needed to be a catalyst at some point to make me actually pull the trigger on trying to do it. You know what I mean? In a serious way. And there's sort of complex reasons for that like why I decided to go down the route that I'm in now. But I would say that to some degree, it was always something that I wanted to do, and how it turned out is just sort of happenstance at like where I was at mentally at the time, a year or so ago. And yeah, I mean, it's a more complex question about like all the decisions that I've made from there. But I think just starting, it was always just like, I think it was just like, I had a moment where I was like, I've always wanted to do this to some degree. What if I just try right now? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it started.
Okay. And a lot of people start with, clip highlights and whatnot. What was your sort of first videos? Were you, what was your sort of goal with the videos you were creating, to tell a story about a game, or, what was, what were your goals with those videos?
Well, I mean, in a way, I started, like you just said, just casually making stuff, and it was, I mean, in retrospect, it was very like low effort stuff. It was very kind of just lazy, and that was, I don't know if you know, but like I was doing TikToks, right, for a long time,
Yeah.
and or, a long time, like a year or less. But in the grand scheme of how long I've been doing things, longer than YouTube, and uh, that pretty much just started as I was just like, what if I try doing this, kind of like I said,
Yeah.
and it was pretty much just it was just clips of like my friends and I playing Tarkov, and that was pretty much it. And then I honestly have no idea. I cannot remember what the catalyst was that made me go, hey, what if I do something that is actually just me talking?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just a challenge for myself. I think that that was probably part of it. But I basically just went, hey, what if I took discussing what's going on in the Tarkov world and literally trimmed every piece of fat out of it and got it under 1 minute long.
Yeah.
And then I just tried to do that. And that was pretty much it, because it was just kind of like, I didn't really see anybody doing that. And that was where I started. And I did that for like a year, right?
Yeah.
Like I basically did like Tarkov news and Tarkov, like discussing something going on in the Tarkov world. And then I would do little clip stuff here and there. But um, like going from there into going to what I'm doing
The long
on
form
YouTube
content. Yeah.
now. Yeah, it was, it's weird because it's very different, but it was also what I was doing on TikTok was never really what I wanted to do, like in a deeper sense, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the videos that I'm making on YouTube is like what I always had imagined I would have liked to have done in the past.
Yeah.
And so I think it's funny because there's a lot of people that'll sometimes say like, "Oh, it's so interesting that you transitioned from doing, the Tarkov news stuff into these video essays so easily." And it's like, in a way, the video essay stuff was always always more
Right.
of the goal, and
Yeah.
the short form stuff was kind of just a weird way to get there and like kind of give myself. I think in a way, it was a little bit of my forcing myself to get some experience
Yep.
on the edit program because I didn't know what I was doing,
Yeah. So
and
like
so
get
that
your
was
feet
probably what
wet.
I. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. Ah, okay. That's an interesting approach because, like, yeah, most people are like throw my game clips up and go from there, and then eventually start creating the short form content or vertical content. And yours was
Yeah.
really TikToks to get to the point where of the videos that you wanted to make. That's really cool.
Well, and the other thing about it too, and I think that this is honestly the bigger thing, was that I did want to make long form content, right? And I actually, I mean, some people that probably watch my content now would have no idea, but I had made several long form videos in the past on YouTube, and just sort of threw them out there, and they never really like got any traction at all,
Yeah.
right? And so I think I kind of just identified that, hey, if I'm gonna like make something on the internet, I can't just be doing exactly what I want to do and just putting it out in the world, because who cares, right?
Right.
Nobody's looking for it. Unless well, basically I had to identify like where are my strengths, right? And I wasn't at the point like a year or so ago where I was like, I can make the greatest video that anyone's ever seen. I was like, I'm just not there. Like,
Yeah.
and so I'm not going to put my time into making the long form video is a lot more work, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to put my time into this if I'm going to be doing something that nobody's really going to be watching. And honestly, as blatantly as I can put it, it's just easier to have videos get kind of bigger on a platform like TikTok. The
Yeah.
algorithm is just more invasive. It works better, right? So
Yeah.
it's like that's really what it was. Is I was just like, hey, I can kind of give myself some practice, do some stuff that isn't as high effort, but is still teaching me something. And on a plus side, somebody might actually watch it, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that was, and I can kind of temperature check like what is working a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Um, and so that was kind of why I decided to. I don't really have any love for that platform. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like I don't. I mean, this is another funny thing. I don't look at TikTok at all. I've never once opened the For You page. I've never watched a
Oh
TikTok
shoot.
video, right? But I was just like, this is a platform where somebody might actually watch my content if I put
Right.
it out there. So
Yeah.
that's why I went there rather than
Just start
just
throwing
making
out
long
long
form
form.
content,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Um,
very cool.
I would say that my biggest mistake was that, and this is a sort of a funny story. And I'm working on a video actually right now that is kind of telling this entire story
Yeah.
that we're talking about right now. But funnily enough, I was not making YouTube shorts for the longest, like a year. I wasn't really doing it for basically no reason other than that I posted a few and they didn't really get any views. And I was like, well, whatever, this platform is not working for me, which is a massive mistake because what I learned later was I just needed to be a little bit more consistent and be a little bit more patient,
Mm-hmm.
and the videos did actually pick up. And that the catalyst for that was that I was in Abney dude's stream,
Yeah.
and I was just watching him, and he recognized me because he had watched my TikToks, and he was like, "Hey, this is the guy that he makes like some Tarkov like TikToks and shorts or whatever."
Yeah.
And he was like, "I assume that you're on like you're doing both like TikToks and shorts." And I was actually like, well, I'm actually not, but now that you say it, I'm going to have to. And that was actually that was the entire reason that I decided to even start posting stuff on YouTube in the first place,
Oh
just to
wow.
see how it went, and then it
Yeah.
absolutely did work. And I was like, oh man, that's dumb that I hadn't just tried this earlier.
Yeah.
So
So now going
yeah.
back to the, not really being consistent with short. So basically, now when you talk about having more patience, are you talking about like dropping a short and giving
Hmm.
it a couple of weeks to cook, or
Hmm.
what did you find that worked? And then you also talked about consistency, like one a week or one a day.
Yeah. So what I was doing when I started the first time that I actually like made a goal for myself to really, because before, anytime I was making content, I was kind of just doing it for fun. I wasn't really taking it seriously at
Yeah.
all. And basically in like January, February of last year, I went, okay, I want to try to post a short on TikTok every day for this entire year. And that was my goal. And I did that. And the interesting thing about the TikTok algorithm is that you will post a video, and within the first, I would say 12 hours, you're going to get the vast majority of the views that you're ever going to get on that video.
Yeah.
So if a video gets 100,000 views in the first 12 hours that it's posted, it might get 10,000 views over the next 9 months. But the
Yeah.
weird thing is that that's not how it works on shorts, like at all. So you'll post a video and it'll get 2,000 views in a day.
Yeah.
And then over the next week, it'll get 50, 60,000 more. And that just doesn't happen on TikTok. And so that
Right.
was what was happening, is that I was posting, and it does seem like being consistent and regularly posting on shorts is a big, the algorithm seems to like that.
Yeah. Ah.
Because what I noticed is that my shorts were, and also my shorts at the beginning of last year were much worse than they were later in the year. But um, once I kind of had a style that I thought was at least working for the short form stuff, and I started posting it more regularly on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that after like a week, all of the videos were starting to get more views, like even the
Oh.
ones that were a week or so old. And I hadn't seen that before, where the video would get like 800 views in a day, and I was like, okay, well, this is dead. And then I would
Right.
check back a month later, and it had 120,000 views, and I was just like, what? I didn't even notice, because it was such an old video that I wasn't looking at it anymore. And so
Right.
that's been a big weird thing that I still have a hard time coming to terms with, because when I was on TikTok, I was such in the mindset of I fire and forget a video, because all of the views it'll get in the first day.
Yeah.
And then after that, I never think about the video again. And it's been weird to have, even with long form videos right now, it's weird to have videos consistently getting more views over like a month. I'm still
Yeah.
not used to that. And it's weird to me that I'm like, people are commenting, and this is honestly a problem that I have, where I kind of make these videos from this fire and forget standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
where I put it out there and then I'm like, well, that video's done. That's on to the next project.
Yeah.
And then I will keep getting comments for like a video that's like 2 months old. And I have this like moment where I'm like, why are you guys watching this video? Like, this is an old video. Watch my new video. Don't watch this, and I kind of need to get out of that mindset, I think, because YouTube is a very different platform in that
Yeah.
way. I mean, I'm like that. I go back and I look up somebody else's channel, and I like, okay, this video is from 6 months ago, but I'm going to watch it, so.
Right. Well, and that's the thing when I, went to do sort of, my homework on you is like I went to your YouTube channel. I was like, it's only 9 months old, and his first video is the video you made for the
The
raid
machinima.
contents.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so are you, with your channel when you started it? Did you start it after you won the contest, or are you always like sort of cultivating your content from a YouTube standpoint?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because I don't even like think of that as my first video, even though it technically is, because I had actually made some videos before that, like I was saying, like in earlier in last year,
Right.
that were really no good, and they're privated or whatever. But that was the first video that I did on that channel. That was I guess you could call it a long form video. It's like 2 minutes long, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a short that anybody really watched, right? Because I do think it was significantly better than anything that I had done on the channel. But it was also very different, and still is very different from anything else that I've done on there. And that was just because I basically just that was just a bit of an experiment, and I was just like, hey, I think that I can win this contest.
Yeah.
And I just tried to do it, and I had a little bit of my Discord community, and they helped me make it. And that was a really spur of the moment thing, and I wasn't actually planning to have gotten into long form content at the time that I did that.
Yeah.
It was a goal, but it wasn't something that I was taking seriously at the time. So that's why that's videos. I don't think of it, actually, let me look at my YouTube channel real quick. I don't
Yeah.
think of it as my like first video, because when I actually started making regular content was the video that is now 6 months old. That was when I was doing Greyzone Warfare stuff, and then
Yeah.
I made the Tarkov. I think I really think of as like my first like video that is like in my style that I like, is the essay on Tarkov is not fun, which is still I think one of my favorite videos that I've made. But that's where I feel like I actually started,
Yeah.
because before that it was just like I happened to have made this other video, but it wasn't really like it wasn't part of my plan. It was just like something that they posted this contest, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I can do something with this, and I did it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, because when you look at your channel, like, anybody who's starting YouTube channels, like, you got those videos that are 100 or 200 or something like that. It's like you look at your sort of your videos, like, damn, they've 40K, 30K. It's like that's a great a great channel you've built in the short amount of time you've started this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm fortunate, and I also think that I front loaded a lot of work, I think is the best way that I could put it. Like, kind of like I was saying before, I didn't get into making long form content until I was like, okay, this is actually the time,
Right.
and this is when I really pulled the trigger on it. And it wasn't just like, I'm going to just put stuff out there and see what works. It was like, I kind of, when I release a video, I'm like, this is, I kind of know how well it'll do.
Yeah.
In a way, because I put a lot of preparatory work into making sure that it's where I want it.
Yeah.
And that's mostly the case. I think that there are some videos that are weaker than others where I didn't really do that. I mean, there's a video that I have from 5 months ago that I changed the title of like 8 times, but it's called "They Hired Special Forces to Make This." It's just talking about like an update, like some info on Greyzone Warfare.
Yeah.
And I made that video in less than 1 day. I made that video in like 12 hours.
Oh shoot.
And that was like they posted this new, and this was at the time when I was totally just like, I was so into that game, and I was so like excited. Not that I'm like, oh, I hate this game now,
Right.
but at that time I was really like focused on it. And they posted this news stuff, and I was just sitting like at a coffee shop, and I was like, okay, screw it, I'll see how fast I can make a video. And that was like a lot of my, honestly, and it up until now, a lot of my decision making in my early YouTube stuff was almost just like a challenge to myself. Like, here's my idea, can I pull this off?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like what things were like. And so that video was just like, it's definitely my worst video. It's not a great video.
Oh shoot.
And I was pretty much just like, can I do a video of the quality that it's usually taken me like 6 or 7 days to make in like less than 1 day? And I did, and I didn't sleep that night, and it was a terrible idea, and I'm not going to do that again.
Oh,
so
no.
that was like, that was, yeah. So,
and
yeah.
like I've had creators on, they talk about they've just trying to guess what's going to be good and what's not going to take off, and they've had videos where they dumped hundreds of hours into a video and it fizzles, and they just slap something together and it explodes, and it's a head scratcher for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody experiences that to a degree. I have a video that is called "The Industry is Collapsing, or Is It?" which has like 60,000 views now. It was definitely my worst performing video for a long time, and it's a 28-minute long video that I actually I don't love it. I go back and watch it, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot that I would have. This is only like my second like video essay that I ever did.
Yeah.
And it's all right, but at the time I put it was definitely the video that I put the most work into. I spent. I mean, at that time I was working at an extremely unhealthy rate. I was basically, I was getting very little sleep. I was just basically no-lifing this stuff. And I probably put, a week straight of time into that video, like staying up
Oh wow.
deep into the night working on it, like, and it was a lot of research and a lot of whatever.
Yeah.
And it just didn't do very well. It got like, probably like in the first month or so, probably got like 28 something thousand views or whatever. And I was just like, man, and at that time I had like, some videos on Greyzone and stuff and on Tarkov where it's like they were getting, like 300, 600,000 views.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, like I hope that this video gets like 100,000 views. Like that would be great. And it like totally didn't. So I was just like, man. And so what that actually really taught me was that the amount of effort that I put into something does not equate how well it'll perform.
Yeah.
Now, that isn't to say I should not try hard. But the point is that I need to like hold myself back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I do that a lot better now, where I go, and a lot of it comes down to when I'm writing the script. Actually, it comes down very early into the production of the video, where I'm like, hey, this is gonna run at like 19 minutes. We got to cut this down to like 14. This is too long. And that video was almost a half an hour long. And I honestly, I watch it now and it's like I can cut 10 minutes out of that. Like there's a lot of it that isn't worth being there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest lessons that I've learned, which is just that like me putting a ton of time, like literal time working on something, is not going to equate it doing better.
Right. Yeah.
And there's been times where where it's been cathartic, where I did put like more time than was necessary in, and the video did well. Like I have the video on GPNVG goggles, and I put by far the most time I've ever put into a video on that one. Like that was like it was like a solid 2 weeks of research.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna release the video. I was like, actually had strung out the entire video. I had the whole assembly done. And then the Tarkov Unheard Edition thing happened.
Oh.
And I got super distracted by that, and I didn't release the video. And I actually just I actually made it. You can find it. I made a tweet where I was like, I'm scrapping this video. I'm not making this video, because I started working on something else.
Yeah.
That was about that. That was about the Unheard Edition thing. And then I ended up scrapping that video and going back and working on the GPNVG one, because I actually just the video that I ended up making about the Unheard Edition stuff, I was just like, I just don't like this. This is bad. I don't like the vibe of it. And so I just completely scrapped that.
Oh shit.
And a little bit of the work that was going into the Unheard Edition video ended up into the video that I just released, which is about like, quitting a game and stuff. But it's just a little pieces of writing here and there. It's not pretty much a completely different thing. But so I'm sorry to waffle on for so long, but long story short, the GPNVG video was like a video that I put a ton of time into, and I pretty much was from this fire and forget standpoint, where I was like, I'm going to release this. Nobody's going to watch this, whatever. It's fine. It was a fun thing. And then it actually ended up performing super well.
Yeah.
So that was extremely, extremely cathartic for me, where I was like, okay, sometimes a video will do better than you expect it to. Right. And that's also nice. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. And now, you jumping back for a second, you were talking about cutting 10 minutes out of these videos to make it not as long. Is there a time, is there a certain time you aim to make your videos for, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Is that in your thought process when you start writing out a script?
Yeah. I pretty much try to, and this is what's funny. I'm actually looking at all the run times of all my videos. I try to shoot for them to be 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And they end up being about 17 minutes long. So the reason that is that the Escape from Tarkov is Not Fun essay is still my favorite video. I think it's my tightest video. I think it's just very, very well composed for how long ago I did it, a few months ago. I think that it's just a well put together video. It flows very well. I think it's successful in my biggest goal, which is like a video about a very niche subject that is actually approachable by people that don't know anything about that subject. I've shown it to people that have never played Tarkov and know nothing about it, and they're like, yeah, that's a good video. I can understand what you're saying. And that's like my goal for everything. And that video is 10 minutes long. So I think that that's, and actually if I go and watch it, I think that there's probably like 40 seconds of me just saying thanks for watching the video at the end of it. So it's probably more like 9 minutes long. And so that's what I shoot for. I pretty much have that video is like the model for everything. And I fail literally every time to do that, because it's very, very hard for me. I'm like the kid where, the people always say things about like, how, you can tell when somebody's trying to like stretch their word count for their essay.
Yeah.
I was always the person where I had 3 times too long of a word count and I had to cut it back, right? Like talking to me right now, you can probably understand. I am very just like verbose. I just say a lot of stuff. So it's hard for me to cut it down to where I want it. But there's a lot of stuff that gets left out. Just I need to be like, hey, this doesn't need to be there.
And now, do you once a video's dropped, do you ever go back and change the title or change the thumbnail?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I think that what it says when I do that means that the title or the thumbnail wasn't so strong to begin with.
Yeah.
And I'm still just totally like learning that. And I've posted on social sometimes. I make solid 15, 20 variations on thumbnails even before I choose one. And then sometimes I go back and change to a different one.
Yeah.
Like it really just depends on like if the video is not performing as well as I thought that it could, which is all just so arbitrary, but like sometimes I'll just change the title a bit. Maybe, and it's often as simple as changing a period to a question mark or vice versa. Right?
Oh, wow.
Like the video that's about extraction shooters, which is called right now, it's called the game genre no one gets right. I think that at one point it was called why no one can get this genre right. Like it's that kind of thing where it's like I slightly change things just a little bit, and it really is just like I have a thought where I'm like, maybe that sounds a bit better, and it's really hard to say.
And now, do you ever use like ChatGPT to help come up with thumbnail titles, or really this is all just you just playing with words?
No, I don't use any kind of language model generation for everything. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that the way that I think about it is that like the audience that I'd like to get from these videos is people that connect to the way that I think about things.
yeah,
And if I'm not putting myself forward, then I'm not going to connect with the right kind of audience that I'm
yeah,
looking for. You know what I mean? And I also just sort of think that it's a bit lazy. Like,
yep,
and not from the standpoint that I'm just like, ragging on people that use that stuff, but it's just that like, honestly, in a way, the fun that I get from this stuff is being creative. And I don't
yeah,
find that to be a really a creative outlet. It's kind of just like, insert title here.
right.
And I think that I could probably get a stronger title from ChatGPT sometimes, right? But
Yeah,
I think that if anything, if it actually so like kind of what I was saying before, if I need to change my title, it means the title wasn't so strong. And I think that
right.
if I'm planning well, I can come up with the best possible title.
Because you know the
And
intent, you know what you want out
right,
of this
yeah,
video. Yeah,
and if I can't, that means that I need to change something about that video.
yeah,
And I think that a funny little thing that I don't remember who I learned this from, but I think it's really great advice, which is that you should have the thumbnail and the title of a video in your head before you even start scripting the video.
Oh wow.
And I think that that's actually it's something that I've always thought that's always been the standpoint that I've come to.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go, I don't have it. Whatever, we go for it anyway, But often those are the videos that have the weaker title and the weaker thumbnail, right? And
Yeah.
I think that ones like the GPNVG one, the extract. It's honestly most of my recent videos. I think I've been doing better at that. But the GPNVG one, the extraction shooter one, the two videos about the Forever Winter, all of those, I had the title and the thumbnail like in my head
Yeah.
prior to making the video. And especially and it was honestly very validating for me that the first video that I did about the Forever Winter, that was another example of a video that did far better than I could have possibly expected it to do. I didn't think that video was going to be that well received at all.
Yeah.
But that was a video where I was like, that was the title that I had from the beginning, and it
Yeah.
was just nice that people connected with it.
Nice.
So I was very happy to see.
And now, where does where do you come up with your concepts of like, from concept to like and subscribe? What, like if we look at like the financial report one from Tarkov, like how did you, think of that
I
one?
hate that video.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Now, why
just
do you
that
hate
there's just
that video? Because of the subject or just because, some people in the community are crazy?
Well, because it's just I think that I'm wrong about a lot of things in it. Basically, I think that I think it's a good video.
Yeah.
I think that from the standpoint of a piece of educational content, it's terrible. Like I
Yeah.
think that I missed the mark in a lot of places. And Pestily, this was a weird moment for me, right? As somebody who was at that point like very new to it, right? The whole
Yeah.
thing. And Pestily made like a reaction video to that, and at first I was just like, okay, that's weird. Like
Yeah.
that's not even it wasn't like this is a react to this video kind of video, but whatever.
Right.
He made that thing, and he makes a lot of points in his reaction to it that pretty much just correct everything. He just makes all the points. He makes all the points better.
Yeah.
And he doesn't outright disagree with me repeatedly, but he's basically just like, I think he's kind of missing this element, and it's like, yeah, no, I absolutely was, right?
Yeah.
And that was another example of a video that kind of killed me when I was making it. Like I
Ugh.
spent far too long on it. And I almost scrapped it several times. I went through like several rewrites, as in like I literally like had the video
Yeah.
assembly edited and then went, no, this is wrong, and like had to go back, rewrote the video, recut everything that I had, so I think that what I actually ended up with is surprisingly readable for how reworked that video
Yeah.
is. But it's I'm sorry, I kind of like started talking about that video, but what was the original question that you were
Going
saying?
back, like how do you come up with your concept? What makes you pick
Right.
a subject, and then from there, do you storyboard it? Do you script it? Do you start digging into it before you start pulling assets together?
Yeah, so I mean, long story short, what it is that I kind of just think of things randomly on the fly. Like just will be on the bus or I'll be like out and about or whatever, and I'll just
Yeah.
think of like and it's kind of like I said, it'll be like a title and a thumbnail will come into my head, and I'll be like, that could be a video, right? So then what I do is that I just have my notes app or whatever on my phone,
Yeah.
and I just have this just like endless file of just ideas, and I just write these things down. I write down like the title, here's what this video could be about, and then basically like I just look through that and I'm like, okay, which one of these are strong? Like what could really have legs to like do something with here? And then from there, once I really like nail down, okay, I am going to make this video, I basically do like a just like a brain dump of
Yeah.
like everything that I can possibly think might be information that could be useful for this subject. And that just goes into a file, and that's just like pages and pages and pages long. And it could just be like, literally like info, just because I come from a little bit of a research writing background. Like
Yeah.
I have some experience doing that. So it's basically that. It's just like the first process of research writing where you just get every piece of info that you possibly can. And it's like a 30-page file, and you just get all of that stuff in. And then from there, I read through all of that stuff and I'm like, okay, what is the actual subject? And then I put that down and I try to get, I get a gist of the video, just sort of like a map of the different subjects. And
Yeah.
then I actually get an outline down that is like, this is the intro. This is the different body paragraphs of the thing. And then I actually write the script. I record the script. I edit the script together. In that process, I probably cut significant amounts of stuff in, rewrite a bunch of it, re-record that stuff there's a massive amount of rewriting that goes in after I've recorded the thing, because it's almost like once I can hear the video, I'm like, okay, this needs to change. There's something about hearing it like spoken by myself that I can be like, okay, this part isn't working, and then I can rewrite that.
Okay.
And then I just I edit the weird way, and this is when it comes into like, this is just the way that I edit, and I have no idea if this is what other people do.
Yeah.
I assemble all of the audio in, like paste how I think it's supposed to go. I then assemble all of and by audio, I mean like my own recordings.
Yeah.
And then I assemble all of the sound, as in like literally the sound effects, the music, all of that, before I put any video in. I have the entire audio assembly is completely pretty much edited. Then I assemble the video, which is just like, and this is what I'm talking about. This is like my worst part of my workflow.
Yeah.
I, pull from footage that I already have. I also just then, like, as I'm going through the assembly, I'm like, I think that I could use a clip like this. Now I got to go find it on the internet, which is just like the most time consuming process. The assembly of the video is by far the thing that takes the longest. It's like, it's probably like 2 days of just like finding footage, putting the footage in there. And then I do an actual edit where I, do transitions, I do moves, I do whatever. And then I go in and do like a text pass, unless it's like literal, this is like a title card. I'll do that during like the initial edit. But then what I've been trying to do recently is actually just do the full edit. Because I used to get really caught up on all the text stuff. I just have fun with it, and it's a total like ADHD thing. I'm just like, I always need text. It's like more text. And I think it's honestly probably hurting a lot of the content. So I've been trying to like really dial that in and be like, okay, do I really need a freaking thing spelling out one word at a time, the thing that I'm saying here, or can I maybe just not do that? So I've been trying to do that as the last literal final pass across the entire thing, and then that's the video. So yeah, it's a long process.
And when you're recording your script, or like if you're reading it, you flub, are you continuing on, or do you stop and create a new audio clip?
Oh no, I just do one recording all the way through, but I just redo.
Yeah.
I mean, I when I was younger, I did a lot of like kind of home video, just like stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been around, and some of my family are in the film production and the editing world and stuff like that. So I've been around it a lot, and I kind of just learned that there's like a way that you can really just like, you read the script and you literally just like, you don't like restart, you just literally from the word you messed up, you just keep reading, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
I just do it all the way through, and so then it honestly takes a while to like edit the actual audio how it's supposed to be, but that's just how I do it.
Yeah, you have a great narrative voice, by the way. I think it's just like, it's a natural thing for your videos.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm really happy that you say that, because it was honestly one of the biggest challenges with doing this stuff. Was, I mean, when I first started thinking about doing video production, it was like I was really inspired actually by people that have no scripted lines in their videos. People that do essays that are I mean, there's this sort of style called direct cinema, even in live action
Hmm.
documentary, which is that there's no narrator, right? Where it's just footage. That's like a style of documentary.
Oh, okay.
And I've always really loved that. And I think that that is like actually it can be very powerful, and it's very, very, it requires a level of intelligence in editing
Hmm.
and writing that I don't have, honestly. Like
Yeah.
it really requires some incredible, um, like knowledge of storytelling to be able to take existing footage and make a narrative out of it. Like
Yeah.
that's very impressive. And I always would have loved to have been able to do that. Um, but yeah, like I said, I think that that kind of stuff takes a lot longer, and it's also just like I don't know if I can do it, because I lean towards writing so much. It was always been something I enjoyed. So
Yeah.
I the biggest challenge for me was then, okay, like how do I talk in a video? I've never
Right.
liked the sound of my voice, right, my whole
But
life. Like I
honestly,
think
nobody does.
everybody says that, right? Everybody says that,
Yeah.
but really, like I was always my whole life I was very self-conscious about like how I sound when I talked, and so I had to. And I think that this is, to go back to an earlier thing we talked about, that was a huge thing that doing short form content provided for me,
Hmm.
was that I listened to my own voice every day,
Uh-huh.
repeatedly, over and over, to the point that it just doesn't phase me at all anymore. Like I used to just hate like listening to myself talk like so much.
Yep.
And that was a big thing for me, was just doing that short form content, because it was just so much. I was just doing it constantly, and I just forced myself into it. And if you watch my old TikToks, the
Yeah.
first ones of them, it's like, so today we have this is
Yeah.
going on
Somebody's
in
twisting
Tarkov.
your
This is
arm
very
to.
interesting. Like it's just like it's so
Uh,
muted, and I'm so like uncomfortable with it. But
yeah.
I think that I really had to force myself into like being inspired by TV narrators
Hmm.
and documentary narrators, with these people that are like, I had to force myself to be more enunciating and more like emotional in my voice
Hmm.
than was natural, like taking it to the extreme, because if I
Yeah.
don't force myself to do that, I'm just so, like, if you talk to, I'm just such a monotone, like I talk
Yeah.
pretty monotone if I'm reading something, right? So I did yeah, the short form content really helped me with that
Nice.
a
Yeah,
lot.
I'm right there with you. Like it's something you have a passion for that puts you out of, takes you out of your comfort zone. Because I hate listening to my voice, and then when you have no choice when you're editing it. And then
Mhm.
the other thing I hate to do is, maybe it's because I'm old. I hate talking to people. My wife is like, Barry, you don't like to call the place to order pizza, but yet
Mhm.
here you are talking. I don't know why to say it about
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but it's funny how things are.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way in many ways. Like in real life, I'm not a talkative person until you find the thing that I will be a
Hmm.
talkative person about.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was the thing that I had to realize, is that I was like, okay, I think of myself as this person who doesn't have the ability to really talk
Hmm.
publicly so well. But then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, but if you get me on the right subject, then I will not shut up about something.
Yeah.
So it's like I need to find what that is, and then I will have no problem with it, right? So I guess.
Yeah, and since you started this editing path, what are some of the sort of tricks or things, or have you found things that helped you make your workflow, cut time out of things and just make it more efficient? Any tricks
I mean,
along the way that you could share?
in a really technical sense, just like, I mean, like I said, like I'm all self-taught in this stuff, so this is just like the most basic thing ever. But I just learned how to make presets in Adobe Premiere Pro. Like if I have an effect that I like, I make a preset out of it, and
Yeah,
I had to teach myself to just actually do that the first time, and not be like thinking about it later, like, oh, I kind of wish I had that effect. If I ever make like a new effect that I haven't done
yeah,
before, I immediately save it as something, and then I don't have to like forget and remember later.
yeah.
But honestly, I mean, I, I still think that my editing workflow is probably just terrible. Like I honestly, like I take so long to do things. But then again, maybe I don't. I have no idea, because I
Right.
don't know what other people edit like. So it's like it feels to me like editing takes just like unfathomable amounts of
Yeah,
time. But maybe I'm editing way faster than other people. I have no idea. I
yeah.
really don't know. But making presets was a big one for me, and
You mentioned keybinds earlier too. That was a big
yeah, I
thing.
mean, keybinds are big, but I don't have any kind of special keybinds really.
Yeah,
I
I was
just
just
use
learning
this
them.
preset. It's just the preset ones that exist, and there's so many. I had actually like, um, I mean, one of my most valuable resources has been Time to. If you know who he is,
No.
he's done some great videos on Tarkov. Actually, he doesn't make videos on Tarkov anymore, but he's done some great videos on Tarkov. He just released one on Rust that's really entertaining, and he works for Ghost Pixel, who edit for many of the Tarkov
Yeah,
people,
I've had
and
Frankie edits
yep.
on, and
Hmm. Yeah.
Frankie's an awesome guy.
Yeah, so Time 2 anyway, he works with those people,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's a very, very good editor, and I talk, and honestly, sometimes I'm like, I really want to be able to do this thing. Like, please, dude, is there a way to do this? Because I know that you'll know if there is. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh yeah, this is how you do it. And I'm like, oh my god, I never would have figured that out. You know, so it's like, because I'm really not a very, I'm not a very tech minded person. I
Yeah.
don't really understand computers very well, and there's a degree of stuff where it's like, when it's in the Premiere program, I can kind of figure it out. If I ever need to do something like open GitHub or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Oh
you've
God.
just lost me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, it's like if it requires any amount of knowledge of code, or if it
Right.
even just like adjusting files, I just won't do it. I just give up. So for the most part, I just use very basic stuff that's already in the existing program.
Yeah.
I know that there's so many things I could be doing that would drastically speed up my process, and they're just outside of my like they're outside my comfort zone. I'll have to figure it out at some point.
Yeah.
But
Well, again, for somebody who's self-taught, your videos are really have a high polish finish to them, and they come out really great.
thank you.
Yeah. And now, what's it like when you have a video that just explodes? Like, you're, 500,000 views or 1 million views. What is, what, like, does that just like, holy crap?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, the funny thing is that there's like different types of videos, right? And it kind of depends. So, I mean, how do I put it? The video, so okay, let's put it like this. The video that I had on the GPNVG goggles was such a like passion kind of project type
Yeah.
video for me. And I mean, it doesn't have the most views in the world, but it has 600,000 views, and that's like pretty good, I would say, for
Well,
like my
yeah,
channel and the
see,
size of
this
it.
is like where you say, hasn't very many views. Like, dude, that's 500,000 views. That's that.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
knock
But I mean,
yourself
I'm just saying,
short.
like in the grand scheme of YouTube, right? You
Yes.
see videos, there's people that are dropping million view videos every day, right? So
Yeah.
and I can't help it. Like I compare myself to everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like I think about things in that way because, I mean, my goal isn't to, make an okay YouTube
Right, a
channel, right? Like
mediocre
I
video,
want it
yeah.
to do well, right? So yeah, but whatever. So it can probably sound a little bit stuck up to say that. I definitely appreciate that, right? Like but so like for example, like a video like that, I'm very, very, very happy with that video performed well,
Yeah.
right? Because it all came from me, right? Like it was just a research project that I was super interested in, and I was just passionate about this, and I was like, I've always wanted to make a video like this, and it does well. That's so just like such a like a validating feeling, right?
Yeah.
And then on the inverse, I mean, sort of, but like the video that I just 2 videos ago, I made a video on the Forever Winter, which is this video that kind of just like game that kind of just came out of nowhere that I ended up interfacing with very deeply, and that was just such a like, it just became so much like part of my life or whatever. And so that was a very much a video that I put a ton of time into, and I really like wanted to turn out exactly like I took it very seriously. I was like, I want this video to come out the right way. Like I want it to be the video I want it to be. And I think I got probably like 80% of the way there. But that video like actually blew up, right? It has 2.2 million views, more views than I ever could have fathomed in a single video. Well, thank you. But I mean, the thing is that, and so this is what I was going to say, is that that's a video that doesn't really come from me, because a massive amount of people that are watching that video are watching it because they've never heard of this game and they're interested in it.
Right.
And they're not really watching the video because they're like, oh, here's this great video by this guy. Like that might become the conclusion that they make at the end, but they're watching because they want to know about the game. Right?
Yeah.
And so the video blew up, but I can't really take credit for that because yes, I made the video, but it's also being driven by the topic, right? And so I think that that's a thing that I struggle with sometimes, where it's like I want to make sure. Now I don't want to like never make videos about new games. Like I loved that opportunity to work with those guys and to talk with them, and it was just such it has been and continues to be like such a cool experience.
Yeah.
But I don't want my channel to be this thing where people are like, "Oh, you're my like news guy,"
right? Or
I'm
the
saying?
ambulance chaser guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think that the thing is that, the people that like the best part of a video like that blowing up for me has been all of these people coming to the video, connecting with the stuff that I think that I brought forward, which is being like, hey, this is this subject that I'm super interested in.
Yeah.
And it's because it's this niche subject that I haven't connected with many people about over the years. And it's all these people going like, hey, I feel exactly the same way. And that's like the best feeling.
Yeah.
So that's what I've really enjoyed about a video like that blowing up, is it's like, here's all these people that it's like, this is my people that are like, they connect with the same stuff I do.
Right.
And then like, and this is again, like, I can totally appreciate how like kind of stuck up this sounds, but like the worst part of it is people then going to my channel being like, hey, when are you making more videos on this
Right.
game?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's not my channel, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I will probably make more videos about that game, but like, don't come to my channel expecting that and then be like, hey, why are you not making more?
Right.
And
You're
I think
not.
that's the
You're
thing
not.
that everybody
Yeah.
experiences.
You're not
right?
trying to be Big Fry or whoever whoever else is doing
Right,
videos
and
on
again,
games.
totally. Like, and I think that, and I don't want it to come across as being like, oh, there's something wrong with people who that is what they do.
Right.
Like, that's not the point at all.
Yeah.
And I watch those channels, right? Like, I watch channels of people that are like, hey, here's this game, check out this game.
Yeah.
But it's just, I want to be able to. My goal has always been, I want to be able to talk about something that I find interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be a game you've never heard of. But I don't want people to then watch that one video and be like, hey, when are you making more videos on this subject?
Right.
Because I might never make one.
Yep.
It depends on what I happen to be interested in at the time.
Yeah.
And that's totally like a hard position for me to put myself in, because it means that maybe some people aren't going to want to watch my video. Maybe a lot of people have subscribed to my channel and then they'll never watch any more of my videos because it wasn't about the thing that they want to hear about. Right.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
it's, but that's just, I have to be honest with myself that that's where I'm coming from. Right. So
Yeah. And then, and this is not your full, also the other piece of this too, this is not your full-time career gig, right?
no, I mean, I'm not, I'm too new to this to be like,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to just do this full time.
So at this point, right now it's it's perfectly fine to make the videos that you want to make rather than ones that you're forced to make. Like sometimes you have these, people who are trying to make this a full-time gig and they're forced to make these videos because they have no choice because it's their living.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that I would absolutely love to be able to make this, something that I do full time.
Yeah.
But I think that if I'm going to do that, I need to be able to set myself up in a way where I can always make something that is completely authentic to me, and I'm
Yeah.
never forced into making content. And I think that that will make my content stronger if I can do that.
Yeah.
I think that if I feel like I need to crank out a video just for the sake of filling an obligation, that video, forget my mental health about it, like the video will be worse, right? Like it'll be
Right.
worse content for my viewers. And that's what it should come down to.
Yeah.
That's what matters, right? Is that I'm putting something out there that is like making somebody else's day better in some way.
Yeah.
And if I'm not being able to do that, if I'm just making content for the sake of making content, then what am I doing? Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the planning and, decision making that I've made around my channel is basically completely built around that idea.
Yep.
And I've succeeded and failed in that in certain ways, and it's actually an extremely difficult thing to navigate. And but it's basically my biggest goal is that I'm like, I need to make content that is actually that I believe in, that I care about.
And then, and going back, what has been the hardest thing, turning, since you stepped into this space, creating these videos and just trying to make your channel grow?
So when I took notes about this before, what I wrote down was Adobe Premiere being slow has been the hardest part of the entire thing. And in a way, I would actually still sort of say that.
Yeah.
That's actually true. But I mean, I think that, yeah, the initial decision-making and planning process and getting from the idea that kind of I was talking about before, where it's like, okay, I write down all these ideas on my note app. Getting from the writing ideas down on my note app to actually having a script is definitely the most difficult part. And that's definitely the part that takes the longest in the entire process, is actually being like, hey, is this video worth making? Do I actually need to like talk about this? Is this going to work as a piece of content? Are people going to get something out of this? Is it going to be a valuable thing? Or is it just like, I feel like making this? Because that's not a good reason to make a video, in my opinion, like for myself anyway. Like, I think it needs to be like, there needs to be a reason why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely the most difficult part. And it's the part that I think that I struggle with throughout the entire process, right?
Yeah.
Like while I'm making something, I'll have so much doubt where I'm just like, is this even a good video? Like, why am I, so.
All right. And then on the flip side of that, what's been the most rewarding thing since, starting your Riloe YouTube channel?
Really, having people connect with stuff that is very like close to my heart, honestly. Like having people like leave comments where they're just like, I've never heard somebody describe this in this way. I've always thought about things in this way, but I've never like heard somebody else say the same thing. Like, I wish I actually had pulled up like examples because I honestly like as often as I can, I save comments that are like really meaningful to me.
Nice.
It means a lot to me that people like,
Yeah.
take the just even a few seconds to write something down and leave their thoughts on stuff. But yeah, just people just I mean people saying that they like my videos, that the videos are well made or whatever is incredibly like, humbling to see, and it makes me very happy. But I think that even more so, like people that are like that connect with something that is kind of specific,
Yeah.
right? I think that that is really like been the most rewarding thing for me
Nice.
is being like, hey, I nailed talking about this in the right way
Yeah.
because somebody else connected with it. I think is like what I really love to.
All right. And now, from a streaming standpoint, I see you do have a Twitch channel. I saw some of your old clips that, you're streaming in a balaclava and a tactical vest. Like, that's not hard. That's not an easy thing to do to begin with.
Yeah, no, it was not. And that was an example of a spur of the moment decision that I forced myself to follow through on. And I don't know how I feel about making that decision. The story behind that was that I had worked a incredibly long day. And this is my horrible work-life balance. I worked an incredibly long day just in real life.
Yeah.
And it was the day that the Streets of Tarkov wipe, like it's the second one
Yeah.
dropped, like when the expansion. And I like freaking went on Discord and was like, "Hey guys, what if I like streamed for the first time today?" And everybody was like, "Yes, yes, do it." So then I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll need to learn how to stream." So then I went like at like 5 p.m. went pulled up OBS.
Yeah.
Was like, "How do I stream on OBS?" YouTube Googled it.
Yeah.
Watched entire like walkthroughs of like how to set up OBS. Did that in like 1 hour. Went in Photoshop, built a bunch of like assets. Did that in like 1 hour, and then like went live on Twitch. But then I was like, okay, I've never like shown my face online. Like,
Right.
wait, what do I do? I can't just like go live on with my face cam. But I also for some reason was like, I need a face cam because that's like what streamers do, right?
Right.
So then I was like, I had all of this. I had done a Tarkov like cosplay
Yeah.
at a convention. So I was like, well, I guess I wear that. So that I did it. And then I guess I just was like, well, I need to do this every time from now on.
Oh, shoot.
And honestly, I kind of regret that because it was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Because it was like I need to have this set up in the right way, and it was just a whole production. And to be honest, like I just was not ready to do that, and I did it anyway. And yeah, so I mean, here's my thing. I'm not obviously just like I'm not like a streamer. I don't stream regularly. I've done it sporadically throughout the past. And I apologize to all of my viewers who really enjoyed my streams because I don't do it very often.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will constantly come and be like, "Hey, when do you stream again?" And on the one hand, I'm like, "Oh, like I
don't want
know.
to."
Well, yeah. But then the other thing is that I'm also just like people want to watch me stream, and that makes me sad because it's like those people,
Yeah.
are I can never like fault people for wanting to see my content. That would be like the most selfish thing in the world, right? So basically, I think where I'm at right now, like I need to figure out how I can do it in a way that is like healthy for me, that I actually think is good.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be honest, I've never thought that I was actually knew what I was doing with streaming, and I don't think that I was like very good at it.
Well,
you
don't.
I think that I need to actually like sit down and figure it out because that's never something that I did. I just kind of just did it.
And there's creators out there that don't stream with the cam, and nothing wrong with that.
For sure.
It's they connect with your videos and your voice, and they can chat with you like that. So there's many. I've had creators on who they just don't have a cam, and that's
for certain. And I think the thing is more so than even having a camera or not. My thing is that I just don't really know. I just started streaming because it was just something that I could do at the time. And I was just like, I'll just try it.
Yeah.
But what I never really asked myself, which was something I definitely did ask myself about short form content and long form content, is like, why am I doing this? And like, what am I bringing to the table?
Right.
So I think that was something that I just I did it because it felt like something to do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really, if I'm going to be doing live content in any degree, I need to really sit down and be like, okay, what kind of value can I bring to this platform that is
Yeah.
unique to me, that is actually going to be worthwhile? And I'm not just doing it because I feel like it, because to be
Right.
honest, I don't really feel like it. It's like something that it felt almost like an obligation to do. And it's not like I hated the experience, but it
Yeah.
was just sort of like I did it because it was something to do.
Yeah.
And I think that I can probably sit down and find a better reason or a better way to go about that.
Yeah.
And find, I think that for me, the biggest like struggle is that I think that I can thrive in an environment like the long form YouTube content
Hmm.
where I can really kind of take a step back and take a deep breath and think about like, what am I doing here? Is
Yeah.
it working? Is it good? And long form or live content is almost like the polar opposite of that. It's like you're being present and you're on, you
Yeah.
know. And I really almost need that, like just being in a sort of echo chamber by myself,
Hmm.
like kind of like, struggling through the process to get the long form content to where I actually like it.
Right.
And I don't have that ability in the live space.
Yeah.
So it's something that I never want to just like abandon as something that I never do again. But it's also something that I really don't know where I can
Yeah.
like where I stand with it and what I can do with it. So
All right. Yeah.
it's a goal for sure.
I'm kind of there with you. Like the streaming is like, I'd rather make my videos and do my
Mhm.
podcast, and I don't want to be live. But for the YouTubers that have been on, they use streaming as their sort of their break to just connect with their friends
Mhm.
and the community. And they don't feel the pressure that they're just being themselves. And YouTube is that's where that's their work essentially.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
So.
yeah. No, that's definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, and then, we've talked a lot about this. Now, how did you find Tarkov? What was your
Well,
path?
it was, I mean, basically just like anybody else. I just saw videos on it in pretty much right when it came out, 2016, 2017. Like I saw some of the first stuff of it. I was like, well, this is really cool because I always used to watch DayZ videos. I was really big into like Frankie on PC. He was
Mm-hmm.
like my favorite ever. And so it was something that was kind of in that niche.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is the most like immersive looking and sounding game I've seen. And that for me, that's like a big thing. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the thing that does it for me with games, right? Is
Yeah.
like, is this game like really suck you into the world and feel really just like
Right.
visceral? And I don't think that, I mean, to this day, I don't think that any game has done that better than Tarkov,
I
really,
I
like
agree
in the shooter space.
100%.
So I think
Yeah.
that was what drew me in at first. And honestly, really what it was is that I saw like the healing animations when those got added to the game. And I was like, this is just fantastic. Like I've
Yeah.
never seen something like this. This is so cool. Um, and so it was always like a game that I was interested in. And I had watched a lot of videos and it looked way too intense for me. I was like, this game is going to give me a heart attack. I can't play this. So I would just like watch some videos on it off and on, but I never really took it seriously. There was a friend of mine that I know in real life that played it a bit,
Mm-hmm.
in probably like 2018. And I remember him talking about it, and he was, he would sometimes. I just remember him posting like on his Instagram, like he was like in labs or whatever, and I
Yeah.
was like, go find a like labs card or whatever. I knew a bit about the game like long before I played it.
Yeah.
But really, what it was is that I heard about Hunt Showdown. I found out about Hunt Showdown, and I was like, so this reminds me a little bit of Tarkov, but I think that it might be a little bit less, you know,
Pucker
anxiety
factor.
attack inducing.
Yeah.
So I tried that game out and I really loved that game. And in retrospect, it's actually literally nothing like Tarkov at all. It's completely different. But it was in retrospect, even though they weren't trying to do this, it is like an extraction shooter. It was Tarkov and that game are kind of the proto model for that whole genre. So I played that game a bunch. And then from there, at one point, Tarkov was on sale, and I was like,
Oh
I'll try it.
shit.
And people that I was playing Hunt with at the time had also played Tarkov. They knew a bit about it, and they kind of just like showed me the ropes in it. And then from there, I kind of just like fell in love with it at the
Ah.
time.
And is it the immersiveness? Is that the hooking factor on it, or what is the hook Tarkov has on you?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think if I can dial down to what it is, it's just that it does so many things better and more like how I always imagined they could be done than many games do. And I
Yeah.
think there's many aspects of it. It's just like, and a lot of it is visual and audio. Like it's just like the weapon sounds, the weapon animations, the
Yes.
weapon reload animations, the sounds of just interacting with your kit, the healing animations and sounds, the eating animations and sounds,
Right.
like that kind of stuff. It's just like does it better than anything I've seen, and it does it in so much more of this this really like visceral way, like you just put a microphone in a physical the space where that thing is happening
Yeah.
and just recorded the sound and put it straight into the game. There's none of this like processing to make everything sound really like
Yeah.
crisp and video gamey. It's like everything is so raw and almost like imperfect, and I really just love that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And then it's also just you know, I mean, for a long time, right? Like the loop of it was just so engaging to me, and it was just so much like it was kind of just a game that you could. It was very very intense, and it was
Hmm.
very just like adrenaline rush, but it was also you can kind of choose to play it in different ways. There was so much
Yes.
of a role play factor to it that I really always enjoyed. Like when I would play with people, we would be like, here's our little mission. We're going to go do this. We have these
Right.
quests and
Yeah.
we're going to go this route and whatever. And that was something that I never really got from Hunt Showdown, because I got to the point where in Hunt Showdown, it was kind of like, it's funny. It's a very, very immersive game. It has an incredible audio design,
Hmm.
just like breathtaking. But once you get good at the game,
It's the
once, you
same
know, there's this whole
process.
matchmaking system in the game, once you get to like 5, 6 stars in the game, you are it is a literal arena PvP shooter.
Yep.
And you go in, you fight people, and you leave. And
Yep.
that is what you do. And you do it in the same exact way with the same weapons every time, because it is such a meta balanced game. Because it's just a different type of game, really. And I think that actually that's not like a knock on that game.
Right.
Actually, I think that that is the space that it holds.
Yep.
And it isn't trying to be a looter. There's no looting in the game. It's
Right.
purely a PvP game.
Yeah.
But that was an aspect of it that I was kind of looking for something else. I was looking for like a game where I could like almost, if I wanted to like casually, like something I used to do in Tarkov, I would just like go in and just do like loot runs by
Yeah.
myself on night maps. Like I
Mhm.
would go in with a pistol and loot maps at night.
I'm
And
there
that was
with
like
you.
a thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's not, there's no other real game that has that kind of thing. So
No.
that was honestly what like got me stuck into it for so long, is
Yeah.
it's really like, you know, in a sort of a good and bad way. It's a game that you can get sunk into, and because there's so many things you can do, you know.
Right. And there's no certain way you have to play. That's the thing I
Right,
like
yeah.
about it. You know, if you want, like
For
you just said, you can go in at night, do a loot run. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to go in as a chat, there's just, I've
Yep.
got thousands of hours in it. I still love it. I don't play it much as I used to, but still, it's still, you know, there's no game like it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the, I mean, I made a video that was just about it, basically like my long-winded way of talking about how, you know, a point that I honestly like weirdly don't see a lot of people make, which is that you can kind of just be done with a game like this for now, but also not be like, I hate this game because it's bad.
Right.
And because that's my honestly like is my opinion, where I'm just like, I have zero drive to play Tarkov right
Yep.
now, but every time that I think about it, I'm like, I know that at some point I am gonna want to play it again, because when I think about like playing it, it's all very positive memory,
Yes.
right? Like it's just very, I did enjoyed so much about it. But I'm just not gonna like force myself to play it, because I feel like I've gotten out of it right now what I wanted, which was like kind of almost just like when I first started playing the game, honestly, what sucked me in at first was I was just like, people talk about this game as if it's like the hardest thing ever. I want to try to like get relatively good at it.
Yeah.
And I kind of did that. And then once I was relatively good at it, I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, so that was kind of where I was coming from. Why I
Yeah.
just sort of like left it for a while.
Yeah. Same with me. And actually, honestly, the PVE aspect has brought it back. Brought me back into it, because I can now go have some fun in labs. I can do fun things with it, and I can still enjoy that aspect of the game.
Yeah, and I think that I'm the same way, and I probably will be in the future. Like I think that I mean, I'm sure that I'll play live servers and PvP and stuff again in the future, especially once they add more little elements to it. But
Yeah.
I think that I like challenged myself with that in a way, and I'm not the kind of person where like I'm really trying to prove anything to anyone other than
Right.
myself. Like I was like, I proved that I can like go toe to toe with people in labs and, you know, reserve bunkers and whatever. Like I can do that kind of like PvP Chad fighting stuff, and I
Yeah.
just like that was fun, and I really like enjoyed it. But then I also like I don't need to put 5,000 hours into doing that. Like
Right.
like once I've done it like a couple times, then I'm like, okay, it's
Yeah.
fine.
How many
I've done a
times
couple
you-
wipes of like being a PvP Chad. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And now, you know, Greyzone. So you know, Greyzone was a, you know, sort of a hit at the right time. How did you sort of, you know, get involved with that?
I mean, funnily enough, it was just sort of happenstance where, and similarly to the Forever Winter, which is the sort of thing I'm interfacing with right now, which is that like I showed, actually that's a little bit of a difference right now that I think about it. I showed initial interest in Greyzone, because I saw the trailer, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's interesting. I made like one video about it, And then the devs like shouted me out and they were like, "Hey, this guy, like, I don't remember what it was, but they commented on my thing and they were just like, 'Hey, you get us.'" And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." Like they like
Nice.
I connected with something that they were putting down,
Yeah.
and so then from there, basically, I just was in their Discord and they had little news things, and
Yeah.
that was just an interesting period of my long form content journey where I think that in retrospect, like I should have focused more on making videos that I really wanted to make
Hmm.
rather than like ones that were, not to say that I've never made a video I didn't want to make, but
Right.
like I really felt at the time I had made 2 videos on that game. They were like the first real long form videos I made. They actually were received super well. At least
Yeah.
the one where I talk about the game was like the first video I made where I like just talk about what I learned about the game. Totally connected with it. I very accidentally became like the voice of like analyzing the game. All these people were like, "This guy is going to be." This is the funny thing, is that all these people were like, "Dude, you're like literally you're about to be the Pestily of Greyzone warfare. You're like the guy." And I saw that and I was like, "Uh oh." Okay,
Right.
this isn't like what.
Is
So
that what
that
you
was
want?
my no, yeah. Well, and it wasn't really what I was trying to do, and it was totally my fault because I put a lot of effort into the weird thing to say, but
Yeah.
it was my fault. I put the effort into the videos, and I was like, I made very high effort videos about the game, and so people connected with it.
Yeah.
As I guess that makes sense that they would. But then I saw all of these people. Then this we talked about this a bit earlier, where so all these people that were going like, "When are you making more Greyzone videos?
Hmm.
Like tell us more about Greyzone. You're the guy. You're the Greyzone news guy." And I was like,
Yeah.
"No, guys, I'm not the Greyzone news guy." Like, don't, and I would say this to people where I'm like, I happen to have made this as like my first video or whatever. That's kind of my fault.
Yeah.
I own that, but don't come to me to be that guy. You know what
Right.
I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that there's some people that have been like, "Oh, you pivoted away from like Greyzone really well," and it's like, well, I never meant it to be my thing at all. So that
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it comes across that way, but like all the other videos that I made subsequently, like were all planned. Like I had this video, I had 2 videos talking about Tarkov. I had the video talking about you know talking about fun and reward,
Hmm.
feedback. I had, and then I made a reaction to sort of the wipe. I made a video about like Battlefield and stuff. Like all those
Yeah.
videos were videos that I had written down and planned before I knew about Greyzone
Yeah.
Warfare, and it just happened to be that. And again, like I kind of own this. I got put into this position where I had sort of like unique access to the Greyzone Warfare
Hmm.
devs, and then I also wasn't too dumb to be like, well, I'm just gonna like not take
Right.
advantage of that.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, it's interesting because I'm still very much like interested in that game, and I'm excited for the future of it. But I think that I put myself into this weird spot where people like looked to me as like the guy who
Hmm.
talks about the game, and so I need to I put a bit of effort into making sure that I pivoted away from that
Yep.
position, and not because I'm like, oh, the game is bad, but because it's just I never wanted to be in that,
Right. Yep.
and
And
it
you're
was a little bit of
immortalized
a
into the
weird
game,
thing.
right? With your own bridge.
Yes, I am, and that's like the wildest thing. I think it's like so, I think it's very cool, and
Yeah.
I appreciate all those guys so much. They're such a like great group of people. They're
They
very
are.
like passionate and just
Yeah.
fun group.
Absolutely. And now Forever Winter, that's sort of a, like you were just talking about a little bit
Hmm.
ago about, the video exploded and you connected with the devs. A lot of it sounds like you guys have the same similar interest from an anime standpoint. What's the background with that?
Yeah, well, so that was kind of I was gonna say it was similar to Greyzone, but it actually wasn't because, funnily enough, I mean, it was they just contacted me. They just like sent me an email, and I was like, what is this? Like, I hadn't seen the trailer for it. I didn't know anything about it, and I
Yeah.
like watched the trailer, and I was kind of just like, like what is this? Like, I don't know. And I like looked at their Steam page, and I was like, okay, it's like a whatever. And I mean, I basically my first video just details this whole story, but I
Yep.
was basically just kind of like, I don't know what this is. Whatever, I guess I'll talk to them because like I guess like if it is a freaking weird scam, then I'll just like not talk to them anymore.
Right.
Um, and I talked to them. I talked to the CEO, and I was like, oh, okay. This guy like literally made my childhood. Like this is the deal. Like this guy, this is like him and the other people that work at this company are like. So he worked on this game Hawken, which was this old mech PvP shooter that was kind of short lived
Hmm.
for different sort of unfortunate reasons, but it was this really cool game that really 2011 I think or something like that it released, and that game was like one of the first like actually like literally one of the first like video games that I remember like watching a trailer for and being like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so cool. And this was back when, kind of like I was saying before, I didn't even play games at this time. Like I just watched like IGN videos and whatever, machinima.com, like back when that was a thing. So I was just like, it was just so funny to be like, oh my god, like this is guys. And it was like all these concept artists that I knew of and had followed for years that were working on it. And the more that I talked to him, I just, kind of like you said, like we connected on so many things. We had such shared knowledge and interest in like art and movies and whatever. And it was just a big moment where I was like, for many years, I've kind of had this feeling that a lot of games are being developed by people who like play games, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And I've always really, really connected with some of my favorite games are very inspired by stuff outside of the games media world. They're inspired by books, they're inspired by movies and various things, right? And so that was a big thing for me where I was like, there's so much of the influence of this game isn't just like, hey, we want to make a game like this game. They're like, hey, we want to make a game like this movie scene, like this one scene from this movie that I happen to like, right? So it's just like, it was that kind of thing where it's just this very niche specific thing that just hit all of my interests, like in an almost like unsettling way. And so I just, from there, I was kind of just sold, like pretty much, and so it's been a really interesting experience. And we I've been put in this, kind of still this position that I can't really grasp with, where I'm like the guy, like I'm like the only guy that they interface with in this way, which is just still so weird for me. But yeah, no, it's been a fascinating journey for me as someone who like, grew up with some of this media, and that's now I'm like interacting with these people.
That's so cool. And now, do they have a timeline when were the games going to be released, like next year?
I actually, I mean, I sort of know, but I also don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that they will be talking about pretty soon.
Awesome.
But I actually don't know.
And now, away from all this content creation stuff, what are some things you like to do when you're not sitting in front of the computer?
I really like reading right now.
Yeah.
I didn't like reading for many years, and then a few years ago, I just like started reading again. And now it's just like my thing. I mean, I pretty much like, I mean, like I said before, I still have I think an incredibly bad work-life balance. I basically am working on this stuff. Kind of, that's all I do.
But it's hard not to when you have a passion, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's bad, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy reading, and I've kind of just like, that's become a little bit of my private passion. Like I don't really like talk to anybody about books or anything, but I'm just sort of like collecting books. Like I'm trying to read as many of like various series as I can and stuff. And then I really like riding my bike. I don't do that enough right now because my tire is flat, and I should probably fix that.
Now, right, like mountain biking's just
not
just
street,
okay.
just street. I have like a pretty much just like a racing bike, like a bicycle. Not a but yeah, that's something that I'm reflecting on now. I haven't done as much as I'd like to recently. I haven't been putting in the time with it, but I love doing that. I love just like kind of going outside and just like walking around. I have pretty much like kind of, I don't really like do anything like super interesting. I don't like play sports or anything. I don't, but I really just kind of like having like not much of a plan, and I kind of just like going out into the city and just looking at things.
Nice.
And whatever. Yeah.
And what book series are you reading right now?
I'm reading The Expanse right now.
Oh, okay.
And I'm 4 books into that. I honestly picked up like the first one of it because I seen a bit of the TV show, and I was like, then I saw the book. I saw the cover of the books, and I was like, oh, I like these covers. These would look good on a bookshelf. So then I bought like one of the books, and that was honestly really like the reason that I bought it. I was like, this is like a nice looking book cover. And then I was like, I actually like these. They're not like the greatest books in the world, but they're kind of like, I kind of like reading just very casual stuff. Like they're almost like they're almost like watching a TV show as a book. Like that is really how they feel.
Okay.
And so I've just been reading those and just kind of eating those up. I've read 4 of those, and it like just in this year, and so I'll probably just read all of them, and then I'll find something else. I was also reading, God, what was I reading? I had a series. Stop. I know I can't remember, but I've been reading a lot of science fiction. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. I need to read Roadside Picnic.
Oh, what's that one?
It's what Stalker is based on.
Oh, no way.
And it's also what Greyzone Warfare is like based on.
Yeah.
And it's so Stalker, like the movie, which was a movie in the 70s, but then also obviously the game series. So
Right.
there's a lot of like, and in a way Tarkov actually, like they're all kind of, I mean, so the movie Stalker is directed by Andrei Tarkovsky, which I'm pretty sure where they got
Yeah.
the name Tarkov from. So it's all kind of like all this like Russian Ukrainian kind of like post-apocalyptic
Mm-hmm.
media with an aspect of kind of there's some radiation vibes in there.
Yeah.
The book was the bit of the lore of the book is that it was written in the 50s, I believe, and then the movie Stalker came out just a few years, like 4 years before the Chernobyl disaster
Oh
happened.
wow.
And the whole story is like weirdly, eerily similar to like the vibe of what happened in Chernobyl. Like in the book, there's people that like there was an event that happened somewhere and it's this cordoned area called the zone, and they like go into the zone to like look for stuff that they can have like a religious experience with or
Yeah.
whatever. So it became this kind of cult thing where, because the Chernobyl disaster happened like right after that movie came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then people started doing that actual thing in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So then there's like this weird vibe where it almost feels like the book is like a real thing. So
Oh,
that's, I
shoot.
think, where a little bit of the cult around it has come from. But it's also just I've heard from friends that it's actually a good book. So
I'll have to check
next on
that
my
out.
list.
Very cool. All right. Well, hey, Riloe, you survived this podcast. Thank you so much for doing this. But before you go, like with past guests, you shout out somebody in your circle that you think would have a good story to come on.
Well, I don't have much of a circle, but what I will say is that Abney dude is still one of my favorite people that is making Tarkov content right now. I think he's just he's such a good guy, and I don't think that he's been on your podcast. I looked that up to make sure that I wasn't gonna, be a jackass who doesn't know what you've already done. Yeah, so I would talk to him. He's a cool guy, and he makes very, very funny, creative videos, and I love how many ways he has found to screw with people in Tarkov. Yep. I think it's hilarious.
Excellent.
So.
All right, we'll get him on. And again,
that's my suggestion.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. All the questions are very cool.